In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a completely custom coupon system that works with any payment provider you want. And I'm also going to show you how to integrate it directly into Stripe so that it'll work with any product that you want. We have fully custom dashboards for the admin side. You can do things like deactivate coupons, delete them. We have limits, expirations, certain products they're allowed for, percentage versus fixed coupons. It's literally the complete package for everything you would ever want with a discount code system. I'm going to show you how to do it in the simplest way possible. Welcome back to Web Dev Simplified. My name is Kyle and my job is to simplify the web for you so you can start building your dream project sooner. And to get started with this discount code style project, I'm actually going to be using the base of an e-commerce project that I created in a previous video. I'll link it in the cards and description for you. But the reason we're starting with this base is so that we have some type of thing for products, customer sales, and so on to actually add these discount codes to. It doesn't matter what your project looks like. You can implement these discount codes in the exact same way. We're just going to be starting with this base level project. Now in this project, you can see we have the purchase page, which is going to be using Stripe, but you can implement this with any purchase provider you want. Stripe, PayPal, doesn't matter. And we also have some admin pages for different things. Now to get started with implementing the discount codes, the first thing we're going to need to do is to modify our database to add in the discount codes. And then we're going to need to add these admin pages to be able to add discount codes, view discount codes, delete them, and so on. And then finally, we're going to actually have to implement the discount codes into our Stripe checkout or whatever checkout method you're planning on using. And that's going to be the 3 steps for this project. So to get started, we're first going to look into the database to actually change our database to have these things that we need for our discount code. So we're using Prisma for our database, and all we need to do is just add a brand new model for our discount code. We can call this whatever we want. We're just going to call it discount code. Now, depending on how complex you want your coupon system to be, this can be simple as having like an ID and an amount field, and that's going to pretty much cover everything you want. But since we're allowing our discount codes to be fixed or percentage based, they can be for certain products or all products. They can have a limit, they can have expiration date, all these different things we need to make sure we take into account. So first, let's go ahead and add in an ID, which is going to be a UUID. So we're going to have that be our ID right there. Then we're going to need to have a discount code. This is the thing the user actually types in. We'll have this be a string, and we also want to make sure that this is going to be unique as well. Finally, we're going to have our discount amount, which is going to be an integer, and then we need to have our discount type, when this is going to be based on an enum. Essentially, we want to either have a value of fixed, or we want to have a value of percentage, because they can either have a dollar amount or a percentage amount off. So we're going to call this our discount code type, just like that. And this is going to be an enum. We're going to create down here, discount code type. And this enum is either going to be percentage or it's going to be fixed. Now you will notice by doing this, we actually get an error, and that's because we're using SQLite as our database, which doesn't support enums. So we're going to swap over to a Postgres database. Again, you can use whatever database you want. Just make sure it's one that supports enums. Now from here, we can specify a limit, which is going to be an integer, and it's going to be optional because we don't want every coupon code to have a limit, but some of them we want to only have 10 or 20 uses, for example. Same thing for an expires at, so we can come in here with expires at. This is going to be a date time, which is optional. Again, we may want it to expire a week or a month from now, so that's what this is for. Now, we also want to make sure we keep track of how many times a discount code has been used, so we can use that against our limit. So we can have an integer for our uses, just like that. And by default, we're going to set that to 0. We're also going to want to have a Boolean for if this coupon code is active, because we want to be able to deactivate a coupon code that we no longer want to be able to use. So this is going to be a Boolean that defaults to true, because by default, we want all of our coupon codes to work. And then we're also going to have another Boolean that's going to be determined if this is for all of the products or just some of the products. And this we're going to default to false, just like that. And let me just expand this a little bit so it's easier to see. There we go. Now the final thing I want to add is just a created at. So we'll say created at is a date time, and we're going to default that to now. There we go. So this is just going to be created at date, and we don't even need to add an updated at because I'm not going to allow us to update coupons inside of our code. And that's because if someone buys a product with a 10% off coupon, and then later we change it to a 20% off coupon, that makes things really complicated to work out on the back end. So we're just going to make it so coupons cannot be modified. Now, the final thing we need to do is to link our discount codes to products. And this is going to be a many-to-many relationship because one discount code can have many products it's good for, and each product can have many discount codes for them. So we can come down here, we can say we're going to have products, which is going to be a product array, just like that. And up in our products table, all the way up here, we can do the exact same thing for discount codes is a discount code array. There we go. Now, if we give that a save, we should see everything is working. And we also want to link our discount code to a particular order, because if someone uses a discount code, we want to keep track of that on the order. So we're going to have an array of orders. And then if we find our order, this is like each sale that a user makes, we can come in here and we can say that they're going to have discount codes, or sorry, it's just going to be an individual discount code. which is a discount code, just like that. And we can also specify a discount code ID, which is going to be a string. Now we just need to specify the relationship for this. So inside of here, the fields that we're going to be referencing is that discount code ID. References is going to be referencing the ID table from our discount code. And then whenever we try to delete the discount code, I want to make sure that we do not allow that if it has an order associated with it. So essentially, if we try to delete a discount code that's already been used, it becomes impossible because we want to make sure we can reference that for the user's receipts and other things. Now with all that done, that takes care of all of our different schema changes that we need to make. All we need to do now is just change our provider here to be a Postgres database instead, so that way we have support for enums. So now you can go down and see that this is no longer broken. And now to do that, we need to make sure in our environment variables, we change our database URL to be our Postgres database URL. So I'm just copying over a database URL for a local Postgres database that is running on my computer. You can use whatever database you want though for your own particular project. Now to make these changes actually work, we need to commit these changes. So we can say npx, we want to run a Prisma command, we want to run the migrate command from Prisma, and we want to do it in the development environment. Doing that is going to make essentially all the changes to our database to actually make these changes we just provided. Now you will notice we're getting an error, and essentially that's because our migration started out using SQLite and now we're converting to Postgres. So we essentially need to remove everything from our migrations. So I'm just going to take this migrations directory and completely delete it and then rerun that command so we can migrate over to a brand new Postgres database instead of a SQLite database. This will get rid of all of our code inside of our database, all of our tables, but that's perfectly okay. So now we have a brand new Postgres database with all that information and it's completely blank. So everything on our page is completely blank. So if I restart our application by running development mode, and I just go to like the home page, for example, in our application, just like this, you'll notice there should be absolutely nothing inside of there, but it does look like things are showing up. If I do a hard refresh of our page though, this was just because of Next.js caching. You'll now see there's no longer anything inside of here. And the admin dashboard, if I refresh, you notice there's no sales or anything, no products, no customers, anything like that. So we're starting with a completely blank database. Now I'm gonna real quick add 2 different products to our database so that we actually have something to work with. And there we go, I just added 2 brand new products. And as you can see, we still have no customers and sales, which is perfectly okay. We'll get those as we continue our testing. Now, if we actually go to our code to see what we need to change, the first thing I want to work on now that we have our database changes done is going to be step 2, working on the admin pages so we can actually add and view all of our different discount codes. So I'm going to come into the source folder here, and inside of our project in our app folder, we have this admin folder, which contains all of our different admin pages, for example, the products page and so on. So I want to create a brand new folder called discount codes, just like that. And in our layout, this contains our navigation. I'm going to add a brand new navigation for our coupons that goes to that discount codes page. There we go. And I'm actually going to call this discount dash codes just because I kind of like that way of URLs a little bit better. So I'll rename this to discount dash codes. There we go. So now if I click on this coupons link, it should bring me to that page, but obviously there's nothing inside of here yet. So let's come in here with a page.tsx, export default function, discount code page. There we go. Return an H1 that says hi, just so we can see if our page works. And there we go, we can see we have that text of hi showing up. Now for this particular page, it's actually going to be very similar to this products page where we have this table with these actions on the side and the add button over here. So I'm going to go into our products page and actually copy this over. So we're going to go to this page here. I'm going to scroll down. I'm just going to copy this section right here, bring it into here and paste it down. And then I'm also going to say I want to create a function called discount codes table. There we go. Make sure I spell that properly. And I'm also going to copy this directly from the products table, just like right here. So I'm just going to take all of this. I'm really only just going to copy the return value portion. So we're just going to copy all of that, just like that, into here, just so we have a starting place to work with for our code. So first of all, let me just expand this a little bit so we have more room to work with. I'm going to import all these different components that we need, such as our button, our page header, and so on. I'm going to make sure I get these from the right locations, just like that. And then this is going to be our discount codes table. There we go. But for our discount codes, we're actually going to have multiple different tables. And that's because we're going to have one table for our unexpired discount codes. Then we're going to have another one for our expired coupons. So this is going to say coupons up here. And then what we're going to do is render out our discount table just like this. But below it, we're going to have another div, which is going to have its own H2 inside of it that is going to say expired coupons, just like that. There we go. And then we're going to render our own discount code table inside of here. And just let's add a few little classes to this. We'll make the text a little bit larger, the font bold, and inside of our div, we're just going to give it some margin on the top of 8. So now what we can do is import all the stuff we need down here. For example, from our table, we need to get our table header, just like that, our table row. We need to get the head component, as well as our body component and our cell component. There we go. Make sure I spell this properly up here. There we go. And then we want to get these as well from our React icons library that we're using. And then finally, we have a drop-down menu that we're rendering. So I'm going to get that as well. Just getting all these different imports from the correct locations. Make sure we get the content section and the drop-down menu item section. And then these two drop-down menu items, I'm just going to comment these out for now. I will just comment out each individual one. There we go. And we're going to get our drop-down menu separator. There we go. So that should clean up all of our different errors minus some of our formatting stuff. Let's get this component imported as well. There we go. And we want to make sure that this is not going to be products or anything like that. So I'm just going to comment this out for now, just so we can see if everything looks correct. Looks like that didn't comment everything as I expected it to. So I'm just going to delete it, click save, so we can see everything does render properly on the right-hand side. And now I'll bring that code back in so we can finish working on it later. So of course, the very first thing I need to do is to get all of our different coupon codes. But we're going to have different coupon codes for this table and this table. So we need to essentially create two separate functions for getting these discount codes. So we're going to get our expired discount codes, just like that. And then we're going to need a separate function for getting our unexpired discount codes. There we go. So let's start first with what our expired discount code is going to look like. So we want to access our database by saying db dot, and we want to get our discount codes, and we want to find many instead of find first. There we go. We want to select specific fields from it, so we're going to make sure we deal with that. We need a where clause to make sure that they are expired, and then we want to order them as well. So we can start with the order by, because that's going to be the simplest. I want to order them by the created at, and I want to order them in the ascending direction. So that's super easy, so we can just see the most recent ones at the top. Then for our where clause, this is going to be relatively straightforward as well, because we have this limit field that we can check against, and we have this expires at field. So essentially, in the case that either our limit or expires has essentially expired, then we can make sure we render out these as expired. So we're going to say or here, pass it in an array, and for the very first one, I'm going to check our limit. So if our limit is not equal to null, because obviously if the limit's null, it's not expired. So if it's not equal to null and it is less than or equal to our db.discountcode.fields.use, then that means that this is expired. Essentially, if we've used this code equal to or more times than the actual number of limit that we have, it is expired. Now we're going to do the exact same thing here by checking our expires at. So our expires at, if it is not null, then obviously we don't have to worry about this. Or if it is null, we don't have to worry about it. And then we want to just check if it's less than or equal to the current date, because then it obviously has expired. So if we give that a quick save, you can see we have our where being selected, our order by being selected. And for now, I'm just going to comment out the select field so we select every single field total. So we can just do a quick return on this, and that's going to get us all of our expired discount codes. And to get our unexpired discount codes, we essentially need to do the same thing we did up here, but negate this entire or clause right here. So I'm actually going to break this out into its own little thing. We're going to say const where expired, and that is going to be equal to this or clause right here. Make sure I put that inside of an object. There we go. And I'm also going to give this a type from Prisma. So it's the Prisma.discount code. Whoops, make sure I import Prisma. There we go. .discount code where input. There we go. That way we can actually have this typed correctly. And now I can just say where expired is going to be right here. There we go. Now for our get unexpired, I'm essentially just going to copy this entire thing over. But inside of here, I'm just going to add a not clause. So we're going to say where it is not expired, just like that. And that's going to give us all the information that we want as well in the correct sorting and so on. So now we can say down here that our expired coupon codes, or actually we called them discount codes, and our unexpired discount codes is equal to promise.all, and we're going to pass in those two functions. So get expired and get unexpired. There we go. We obviously need to make sure that we await this and that we need to pass these as an array. So if I use an array syntax right here, make sure that this is an async function, give it a save, you can see that now we have our expired and our unexpired discount codes. So we can pass these down. Let's get our unexpired ones. This is going to go inside of here. There we go. And we're going to get our expired ones as well, which is going to go inside of here, just like that. Now, right now, I don't really want to worry about rendering out all the content inside this table. For now, I'm just going to come in here and we're just return null. So we don't actually have to worry about any of the content inside here. If we save, you can see it's still showing up. And that's because I want to focus on adding a coupon first before we worry about rendering it. Because if we have no coupons to render, it really doesn't make sense. So let's come in here with the add coupon. This is going to go to discount codes/new, and we can create that brand new page. So we can come inside of here, new folder called new, and inside of here a new page that is called page.tsx. And this again will look very similar to our products new page. So I'm just going to copy this over directly so it's a little bit easier to work with. So we can have our new discount code page just like that. We obviously don't have a product form, so I'm going to remove that. And instead, this is going to be our discount code form. And we need to create that as well. So inside of here, we'll say components. And inside this component, we'll say we have our discount code form.tsx. I'm going to copy that from our form for our product as well, just so we have a starting place to work with. There we go. So first of all, let's actually clean this up quite a bit. This is going to be our discount code form, just like that. We don't need to worry about passing in a discount code because these are not something we can edit. So we can completely remove the need for that. Same thing here. Our action is going to be much simpler because we're just going to have an add discount code action that we're going to create a little bit later. So for now, don't worry about that. We'll create it in just a little bit. We also don't really need to worry about any of these variables out here. We can just jump right into our form. So the very first thing in our form is we need the actual code for our discount code. So we're going to call this code and change all of these to code as well. So this will be code. And again, we have no default value to worry about. And we can also make sure we check for any errors that we have as well. So inside of here, that we'll render out the error for our particular code that is going to be coming from this action that we're going to create. And pretty much all of our inputs are going to look exactly like this one input right here. Now, the next thing that we're going to need to add is the ability to determine what the amount is and then what type of amount we're using, percentage or non-percentage. So I'm going to put that inside of a div. And I'm actually just going to remove all of this code down here because we no longer really need this. So I'm just going to remove all that because everything is going to look essentially like this single div here. So this is going to be on one line. So I'm going to wrap it in a div that's going to have a class name where we're going to have things spaced out in the Y direction of 2. We're also going to have a flex gap of 8. It's going to be a flex container. So make sure this is just gap of 8. There we go. And I'm going to set my items on the baseline. There we go. Just like that. So that allows me to essentially create one single row. And now inside that row, we're going to have multiple of these components. So I'm just going to copy this down 2 separate times. One is going to be for the amount. So down here, we're going to have our amount just like this. It'll just say discount amount. There we go. And we can make sure that this is going to be a number input, obviously. This will say discount amount, and I'll make sure down here I do the exact same thing. ID and name are both discount amount. And we can also make sure our error has the correct thing showing as well. There we go. I'm also going to make it so that this is the thing that grows in our flex container because this is essentially the input that determines the amount. And up here is where we're going to have our radio buttons for determining percentage or non-percentage. Now we're using shadcn for most of our UI. So to use these radio buttons that they have built in, we can just install them just like this. So I'm just going to copy over this command. I'm going to open up my console, paste that command in, so it's going to run real quick, add that component in for us, and then we're just going to restart our server back up. So we'll give that a second to run. There we go, that just finished. Let's run our development environment again so we actually have our code working, and we can go back into here. So now we can go back to this top section here, which is where we want to have that radio section. So we can have a label, and this is just going to say discount type, and we can have our name for that be discount type. There we go. And instead of having an input, we're essentially going to have a radio group. So we can say radio group, which is coming directly from that library we just installed. And inside of this radio group, we're going to have multiple radio items, but we want them to be on their own lines. So we're going to put this inside of a div, just like this. So each item is going to be on its own line. We're going to say it's going to be a flex with a gap of 2, and the items are going to be centered. Now inside of here, we're going to have our radio item, just like this. Make sure we get it from the correct location. And I believe it's called radio group item instead. There we go. And we can close that off. And inside of our radio item, we need to specify the ID for this, which in our case is going to be percentage. And we also need to specify the value for this. And this is our discount code type dot percentage because we want this to be the value for when we have a percentage one. Then we also need to specify a label for this. HTML4 is going to be that ID field. So the ID is percentage, just like that. And we can say percentage. Perfect. Make sure I spelled that correctly. I'm going to copy this down so we have 2 separate inputs inside here because this one is going to be for the fixed amount. So this will just say fixed and the value will be fixed. Finally, on our radio group, we need to specify what this is. So we're going to say this is our discount type. We also need to give it a name, which is discount type, just like that. And we also need a default value. So we're going to say default value. This one is going to be for the percentage value. So we can say discount code type dot percentage. There we go. Now down here, let's make sure that we come in with our discount code type. So let's just copy that over for our error message down here. There we go. That should clean up pretty much all of our code. We can actually see what this looks like if we just save it real quick. Obviously, this action doesn't exist. So I'm just going to create a really simple function that just called add discount code. And I'm going to put use server inside of here so we know this is a server action, and make it async so at least this will work for us, and it'll return an empty object just for now. So we'll give that a quick save, click on add coupon, and it looks like we're getting an error, and it says the default export is not a React component and our discount code's new. So let's come into here and let's make sure we import our form from here, and that should hopefully fix this. Give that a quick save, give it a refresh over here, see if that fixes our problem. It does, but now we get a different error. We cannot use server inline for a component here. Essentially, all I need to do is just take this action that we created and actually move it into the correct location. So we have our actions inside of here. I'm going to create one for discount codes.ts, just like that. And at the top, we'll say use server, and we'll export a function called add discount code, which will just return an empty object for now, just so we can actually import and use this to get rid of any errors that we had. Now, if we give that a quick save, we must see that server actions must be async. So again, let's just make this an async function. There we go. Now you can see that that has cleaned up our code quite a bit, and it looks like some of our formatting is maybe not correct. So let's go ahead and look into here to see what's wrong with our formatting. It looks like actually our formatting is not incorrect. I just accidentally put this radio group section in the wrong section instead of replacing my code section. So I'm just going to copy what this code section is, paste it up here, and then I'm going to take this radio section, copy this down. I'm going to paste it in the correct location. That should actually fix that problem. I just put these in the wrong location. And now, as you can see, we have our code up here, our discount amount here, and we can toggle between which type of discount we want. And by using that flex grow on this container, you can see it grows to the full width, while if we remove that flex grow, it would not grow to the same size. So if we remove that, you can see that this input is no longer as big. That's why we added flex grow on there. Now we can kind of minimize down some of these to make it a little bit easier to read our code. And we're going to need to add a brand new row here for the number of limits that we can have. So this is going to be the limited number of uses. We'll replace code with limit in all the different places that it is used. So here, 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 and here. And this is going to be a number input, but I'm not going to make this required because this is optional. I'm also going to add some text underneath of this with a class name of text muted foreground, just to say that leave blank for infinite uses. There we go. So now it just has some text here, essentially informing the user if you don't add a limit, it'll have infinite uses, which is exactly what we want. Now we can copy this down one more time for our expires at section. So we'll just copy that down. This will say expires at, or we'll just say expiration. It's a little bit more English-like. Expires at, there we go. Replace these IDs, names, and down here as well. We'll say here, leave blank for no expiration. There we go. And then for our input type, we actually have a type inside of normal HTML called date time local. And if I save, you'll notice that this actually allows me to select not only a date, but also a time. If I move my camera, you can kind of see what that looks like. You can see when I click on this, that I have the option to select dates and times, which is really great. Now I obviously want to specify a minimum value for this because obviously I don't want to expire in the past. So I'm going to specify a minimum here, which is just going to be new date. And I want to convert that new date to JSON because that's how it's going to be used in this input. So I can just say to JSON just like that. And now it's going to give me a minimum value. So if I try to actually select something that's in the past, for example, February 27th, and I click save, now this actually technically doesn't quite work. And that's because we need to do a little bit of extra finagling by splitting this on the colon, because essentially the way that this is going to return to us is a date that has a bunch of information. So we have some times information, and then we have a T, and then we have the hours. So I'll just put like 00, followed by a colon, followed by the minutes, followed by a colon, followed by the seconds, and then some other information afterwards. Well, we essentially do not want the seconds portion. We want to remove this last portion from it. So if we split this just like this, and then we use the slice function to get everything except for the last element, and then rejoin it back on a colon, that should actually work for this particular input. So now if we remove that, give this a save, and we click the save button over here, you can see the value must be essentially the current date or later. So that's exactly what my current date and time is in my local date and time. And as soon as I change that to be something that is after that particular date and click save, you see the error goes away. Now to make this input a little bit smaller, I'm also going to add a class name onto here. So we're going to say that the W is going to be max content. And by saving that, you can see it just makes this input a little smaller, which looks a lot better. Now this last section that we need is going to be a little bit more complicated just because it's going to be involving a bunch of checkboxes. I'll copy over this basic stuff. So we're going to have first a label for our allowed products, just like that. And it's actually not going to have an HTML4 because it's not going to point to any particular individual checkbox. Then we need to have a checkbox for all of our different products, including the all products checkbox. So we can come in here with a div that we're going to give a class name of flex gap2, and we're going to make sure the items are centered just like that. And this is going to be for our very first checkbox. So to use a checkbox, we're going to get that from shadcn and again. So inside of here, instead of radio group, I'm just going to say checkbox just like that. That's going to add the checkbox component for us so that we can use it. Super simple component, run that in development again. And now we have the checkbox component that we can use. And this checkbox component has things like ID, which is going to be all products. We have a name, which is all products. We can also specify whether or not this is checked, and we're going to need to put this inside a state. So we're going to come up here and say all products and set all products is equal to use state. This is going to be a Boolean, and actually we don't even need to do that because we can just say by default this is going to be true, because by default we want it to be all products unless they select something else. So checked is going to be all products, and on checked change we just need to take our value and say that we want to modify that. So set all products is going to be, and actually since this is a shadcn component, this e value essentially returns to us either a Boolean or the text of indeterminate. So in our case, we can just check to see if this is equal to true. If it's equal to true, then we know that we want to set this to true. Now we can close off that checkbox, and we can also add a label with an HTML4 that points to all products. Make sure I spell that properly. There we go. And this will say all products. Perfect, just like that. Now we can remove this input right here. We don't really need that. And now we can add something for all of our different product inputs as well. So essentially we want to get all of our products and loop through them. But technically, actually, since this is a client component, we can't do that inside of here. So instead I'm going to pass my products in. So we're going to say products, and this is going to be products, which is going to be a name, which is a string, an ID, which is a string, just like that, and it's going to be an array of those different values. Now, if we give that a save, you can see it's going to have name and ID as an array. So now for each one of our products, we can map through each product, and we can essentially render out the exact same thing we were rendering out up here. So we can just copy this entire div and paste it down into here. Obviously, we need to give it a key, which is our product.id. Then for our checkbox, we can give it an ID, which is our product.id, which we can also set here. Product.id, just to link these together. We can make this show the product.name, just like that. We obviously don't need to specify this checked or unchecked, so we can remove that. Our value here is going to be a product.id. So essentially, whenever we click on an individual product, the value is going to be whatever the ID is. The name for this is going to be product IDs. So we're going to have multiple checkboxes with the same name. So when we submit them to our form, it's going to give us an array of all the different checkboxes that are checked. And then finally, I'm going to disable this if all products is true, because if we've selected all products, obviously this should be disabled. Now the error codes for this one, I'm actually going to move up a little bit just for formatting purposes directly underneath it here. So if we have an error for all products, I'm going to render out that error. And if we also have an error for our individual product IDs, I'm going to render that as well. So I'm just going to copy that just like that. So let's give this a quick save. If we refresh over here, we should see everything is working on the right-hand side, but obviously there's going to be no checkboxes for our products, and we're actually getting an error, and that's because we're not passing in our products to this page. We need to make sure we pass in our products. So let's actually select those products. We'll need to make this an async function, and we can just say const products equals, and we want to await connecting to our database. So we're going to get our products, and we need to find many, and it's going to be rather simple. We want to select just the ID, and we want to get the name just like that. And then finally, we want to order these by their name. So we can say name in the ascending order. Now what we can do is pass in our products, give that a quick save, and you can see that it has cleaned it up. And down here, you can see we can toggle either all of our products or we can toggle individual products. But as soon as we toggle this all products, you'll notice that these become disabled. So now to clean up essentially the rest of the errors that we have inside of our form, we just need to implement our action to make it actually work. So what we can do is we can go into our action for our discount codes, and we can work on making this function work. And the first thing I want to do is create a schema for it. Now I'm going to bring my camera back because it shouldn't be in the way for any of the stuff that we're going to be working on. And for this schema, we can just say const add schema, and this is going to be using Zod, which is what we used in this entire project. So we can say z.object, and for this object, we're going to essentially take all the data from our form, and we're going to convert that into essentially all the different verifications that we need. So like our code, for example, we know it must be a string, and we know it must have a minimum value of 1. We can go through and do this for everything. For our discount amount, we know that this is going to be coerced into a number because it's going to come to us as a string. So we want to convert it into a number. It's going to be an integer just like that, and it's going to have a minimum value of 1. So there we go, making sure it's required. Our discount type right here, this is going to be a native enum because we already have an enum for this called discount code type. There we go. And we're going to make sure that that is there. Now we can specify our all products checkbox. So we can say all products. This is going to be coerced into a Boolean. So this is just going to convert that into a Boolean value, which is great. We're going to have our product IDs. So product IDs, this is going to be an array of values, and these values are going to be a string, just like that. And of course, I want to make sure that this is optional. There we go, because we could have no values at all inside of here. Now, the next thing we need to focus on is the expires at flag. And this one's going to be a little bit complicated because we can't just coerce this into a date because it's going to send us a string and it's going to give us some weird information. So instead, we need to use a preprocess here. This preprocess is going to take in a value. And if the value is equal to an empty string, then that means we selected nothing at all. So I want to return undefined, just like that. Otherwise, I want to return what that value is. So essentially, what this line of code is doing is just replacing an empty string with undefined. Otherwise, it returns exactly what we had before. Then I can pass it a second function, which is what we're going to do to actually coerce this into a date, just like that. We can specify that the minimum needs to be essentially our current date, and we can specify that this should be optional as well. So essentially, all I'm doing is making an empty string show up as undefined so that when we do this coercing, it actually works properly. And I'm going to move this optional field to right there. There we go. So now the next thing that we're going to be working on is going to be our limit. And this limit is going to be very similar. I essentially want to do the exact same thing I did here. So in the case that we have an empty string, I want to set this as undefined instead of 0. We're going to coerce this into a number. We're going to make sure that it is an integer. And we have a minimum value of 0 for this. Actually, it should be 1. Now that's essentially all the different fields that we're going to have, but I do want to do some extra refining. So what we can do is after this, we can add in these different refine clauses. They essentially take in our data, and if this returns to us a value of false, then it's going to allow us to add an error message. So for example, if we have a discount type that is going to be a percentage and our discount amount is greater than 100, obviously we should throw an error because it's impossible to have a discount greater than 100%. So let's add in these different kinds of things. So if our data discount amount is less than or equal to 100, or our data dot discount type is not equal to the discount code type dot percentage, then essentially we're saying that we have a discount code that is a percentage and it's greater than 100. So now what we can do is we can specify that we're going to have an error. This error is going to be on the path of discount amount because that's where we want to show the error is on this discount amount. And we also need to specify what the message is going to be. And we can just say that percentage discount must be less than or equal to 100. There we go. So now we have a custom error that's going to be specifically for this scenario right here. We can add more refining as well because we want to make sure that if we have all products selected, then our product IDs should be an empty array. And if all products is not selected, then product IDs must exist. So we need to take into account both of those scenarios as well. So in the case that we do not have all products selected, then we want to make sure that our data.productIDs is equal to null in this check right here. Here we go. So now we can specify a message for this, and that says cannot select products when all products is selected. There we go. And for the path of this, we're going to say product IDs and make sure that that is inside of an array so it works properly. And we're going to copy down this refine because this next one is going to be very similar. But in the case that we have all products, we need to make sure that this is actually not equal to null. And now here we can say must select products when all products is not selected. And that's going to be on our product IDs as well. So this is essentially all the different checks we need to do to make sure our entire object works exactly like we expect it to. And now here we can take in that form data that we're getting just like this, and we can actually make a check against our schema to see if it's correct. So we get our results, which is equal to our add schema dot, and we want to safely parse this. And we're going to pass in our form data, but we want to convert this to an object. So we can say from entries, form data dot entries. Now this technically will not actually work. And the reason that this won't work is because our form data, converting it to an entries like this, is actually going to make it so our array of product IDs is only going to ever use one product instead of multiple product IDs. So instead, what I want to do is I want to spread this out into the current object. So we can just do this. That's going to spread it out into a new object. And now our product IDs, I want to manually get from my form data. So I can say form data dot get all, and I want to get all my product IDs. Now I'm going to actually extract this out up here. So we're going to say product IDs is equal to that. So here I can say if my product IDs dot length is greater than 0, then I want to return my product IDs. Otherwise, I'm just going to return undefined because obviously if we have nothing selected, it makes sense that this is undefined instead of an empty array. So now this will actually work, where our product IDs are properly being mapped and all the rest of our data is being properly mapped as well. So now we can say here, if our result.success is equal to false, then we want to return our result.error.form_errors.field errors, just like that. And that's going to return to us all of our different error messages that we have, which is really nice. And that'll actually clean up a lot of the different errors we have inside of here. You'll actually notice the only error we have left is because this action must actually take in 2 parameters. So if we come to our action, it must also take in our previous state, which we don't care about. So we'll just type this as unknown. And now that'll actually clean up that error. So if we come back into here, you'll notice we have no more errors. So now once we have all this done, we finally can get our data, which is just result.data. I should call this result instead of results. There we go. So now we have our data and we can actually create this coupon code. So we can say db.discountcode.create. We want to create some data for this and we can pass in everything we need. So this is just data.code. We're going to have our discount amount, which is data.discount_amount. Same thing with our type, data.discount_type. We're going to have our all products, which is data.allProducts, essentially just mapping this one-to-one. The only difference here is our products section. If our data.products, product IDs, is not equal to null, then that means we have some type of products we want to render. So we can say we want to connect, and we want to connect based on all these different product IDs. I just want to get the ID portion of it. So I can say ID, I'm going to map this into an object for IDs, just like that. And I need to make sure I wrap this in parentheses. And we also need to make sure that we come in here and use undefined as the second option. Make sure I put that in the correct location. There we go. And that should actually be, there we go. And then I just need to remove this, give it a quick save. So essentially, if we have product IDs, I'm just saying, hey, connect my current product to this new discount code that I'm creating. That's all that this line of code is doing. Now, finally, we have our last 2 sections, which expires at, data.expires at, and we have our limit, which is data.limit. There we go. That's everything we need to do to create a brand new discount code. And once we have that done, we can essentially just redirect the user to the normal discount code page. So we can say redirect them back to /admin/discount codes. There we go. And I just want to make sure that we wait for this to finish before we do our redirect. So now let's actually create a code. We'll say that this is a test code. The discount amount is going to be 12, and we'll just call it 12 for the actual code. It's going to be a percentage. It's going to have a limit of 2. Let's say it expires just sometime in the future. It really doesn't matter. And it's going to be for all of our different products. So we'll just uncheck those other checkboxes and say all products. If I give that a quick save, you notice so far we're showing no data, but it looks like it actually works successfully. Let's add another coupon. We'll call this one 15. It's going to be for a dollar amount of 15. There's going to be no limit, no expiration, and this is going to be for these 2 products. Click save. And of course, we're getting an error right here. So let's look at our code to see what's actually going wrong. Here, we're getting our product IDs from our form data. That looks to be correct. If our length is greater than 0, we're actually returning them. Otherwise, we're returning undefined. That again looks to be correct. I think actually the problem here is this should say product IDs instead of products IDs. I think that was just a typo. Now, if I click save, you see it actually did save. So I think everything is working for actually saving and creating coupons. Now we just need to render them to our page inside of our table because right now we're just not showing our table at all. So let's go ahead, we'll remove this null here and we're gonna come down and this first column is going to be, is it active? So we'll just say is active is this first column. Then we need to specify what we want. We're gonna have our code section. I'm gonna remove a lot of these. We're gonna have our discount, just like that. We're gonna have the expires column here, remaining uses. We're going to have the number of orders, and we're going to have which products this is available for, just like that. And then finally, we're going to have the actions such as deleting, toggling, active, and so on. And then up here, we're actually going to get in our discount codes, just like that. And this is going to be our discount codes table, props, type, discount codes table, props. Make sure I spell that properly. And that's going to be discount codes. And actually get the type of this, we're actually going to get it directly from this function right here to make it as easy as possible. So this is going to be this function right here. We want to get the type of that. We want to make sure that we wrap this in a generic because we're going to use a built-in TypeScript type to get the return type of this. And we also need to get the awaited return type because this returns to us a promise. If we do all of that, we should see that now all those errors go away because this is just essentially getting the return type of whatever that function is, which is exactly what we want for our discount codes data. Now down here, we need to loop through our discount codes. So here, each one of our discount code, we want to do something in particular, such as setting the ID right here. Here, this is the is active flag. So if it's active, then we can say that is active here. Otherwise, it is inactive, just like that. That's perfect. And then we need to specify essentially our code, discount, expires, remaining uses, orders, and products. So the first thing is the code. So we can have discount code.code. The next thing that we need is going to be the actual discount that we're getting. So this is either going to be a percentage or a number. So we should probably create a simple formatter for this. We'll call this format discount code. And this is going to take in our discount code. So we can say discount code just like that. And now let's create this actual formatter. Now, luckily we have essentially a lib folder. If I go down to our lib folder, we'll just close out of a lot of this. Inside the lib folder, we have this formatters function. We can just export a function with that name, which is going to take in our discount code. Really, all we care about is the discount amount, which is a number, just like that. Make sure I get this correct. And this is the discount type. So we have our discount amount, which is a number, and our discount type, which is that discount code type. There we go. So now inside of this formatter, we essentially want to render this either as a percentage or as a fixed value. We can use a switch case really easily to do that based on our discount type. So for our discount type, in the case that we have percentage, so here's our first case, percentage and fixed. In that percentage case, what we want to do is we want to return essentially a formatter for our percentage. So let's create a percentage formatter. Percent formatter is equal to new intl.number formatter. There we go. Make sure I spell this correctly. intl number format. This is going to be using the English formatting, so ENUS. And then we want to make sure our style is percent. There we go. Give that a quick save. And now down here, we can actually use that. We can say that we want to use this percent formatter. We want to call the format function on our discount amount divided by 100, just to convert that to a percentage. Now in the fixed one, we can just return here, format currency, and pass it in our amount, just like that. And then finally, we need a default case. And this default case should be impossible to actually get to. So if we get to this, I'm going to throw a new error. And this error is just going to say invalid discount code type. It's going to list out the discount code type. And the important thing is I'm going to make sure that I type in satisfies never. Whoops, satisfies never, just like that. Make sure that we get all of our actual formatting for this correct. There should be a $sign right here. And this should say discount type instead of discount code type. And if we just give that a quick save, fix some of our formatting that we have, and make sure that I actually spell satisfies properly, we can now see that this works. Now, the reason I add this satisfies never here is just because if, for example, I forgot to include one of these cases, you'll now see I get a TypeScript error here. So it's just making sure I include all the different discount types inside this switch statement. So now if I just import this formatter, it's going to format this discount code, whether it's a percentage or a number, perfectly fine. Now, if we scroll up, the next thing we have to work on is our expires section, which is going to need its own formatter. So what we can do in our formatters, we can export a function. This one's going to be called format date time, just like that. It's going to take in a date, and it's going to use a formatter. So we can create a formatter. We'll call this a date time formatter. New intl.datetime formatter. This one's going to be in the English language. And what we're going to do is say that the date style is going to be medium. And we're going to have it here as the time style as short, just like that. So now here, return, we're going to use that formatter, call format with our date. So now we can just use that. Format date time. And inside of here, we can pass it in our discount code. And we want to get that expires at. There we go. Now you will notice we're getting an error, and that's because this could possibly be null. So we need to make sure we account for that as well. So I can come in here and I can say if my discount code dot expires at is equal to null. Well, in that case, I just want to render out this minus symbol. So let me just say minus, just like that. That's going to be an icon that shows up. Otherwise, we're going to actually format that as a date time. And we give that a quick save, and now everything should be working. And let's finish out the rest of the things in our table. So we have our expires at. Next thing we need is our remaining uses. So let's just come in here with a new table cell. There we go. This is going to be very similar to what we add up here. I'm just going to copy it over. This is going to be our limit. If our limit is equal to null, well, then what we want to do is render out the infinity icon because we have infinite number of uses. So let's render out that infinity icon. Otherwise, we're going to format a number. So we can say format number, and this is going to be essentially our discount code dot limit minus our discount code dot uses, just like that. There we go. Now we can add another table cell inside of here because I believe we still have our orders and our products section that we need to render out. So let's come in here, table cell, just like that. So this very first one is going to be for our orders. This is simple. We can just format a number to actually get our discount code dot count. And right now we're not actually selecting the count of anything. So up in here, where we're actually doing our select field, we should probably populate this with only the fields we actually need. So let's do that. We'll just create a select fields. and that's going to be Prisma dot discount code select. There we go. And what we can do is we can select, for example, the ID is going to be true. There we go. We have the all products, which is going to be true. We want to select that. We want to select the code. There we go. We want to select the discount amount and the discount type. We also want to select the expires at. We want to select the limit. We want to get the uses. We want to get if it is active, which is going to be true. And then finally, for our products, we want to get the name of each product that we're going to be using. And then finally, the very last thing is our count section. We want to select the count for the number of orders. There we go. Set that to true. So this is just going to give us how many orders this is associated with. And now we can use that select fields in place of where we are doing our select here, where originally we just had nothing at all. There we go. So we should still have no errors, but now down here, we can actually get the underscore count dot orders. There we go. Now the last thing we're going to need to do is render out which products this is available for. So if it is currently the all products, so if all products is true, we're going to render out an icon for the globe. So we're going to get this globe icon, which is just going to essentially say everything is available. Otherwise, we're going to render out all of our different product names. So we're going to get our different discount code products. We're going to map through them, and I want to get just the name. So we can say p.name. And then what I want to do is I want to join this on the comma, just like that. Now, if we scroll down to this actions section, we have no way to download this. So obviously remove that. We have no way to edit, so we can remove that. And we can worry about figuring out these two things in a little bit once we make sure our format for our table actually looks fine. So let's just expand this so we can actually see it. You can see our code shows up 1215. We have our discount percentages, which actually look correct. Our expires at date is rendering. Remaining uses is showing up fine. We have 0 orders for both. As you can see, this one lists the products while this one has a globe for that. So it looks like all the different formatting is correct. We just need to make it so we actually have things in our drop-down menu showing up properly. Also, we need to worry about what happens with expired coupons as well. So I'm going to create a brand new coupon. I'm just going to call this one EXP because this one is going to be expired. And I'm just going to set the actual date time like 1 minute in the future. Click save. Actually, I need to make it a little bit more in the future. There we go. Click save. And it looks like it must be 2:35 p.m. or later. So let me just make sure I do that. So 2:37, make that a PM. Give that a quick save. So now in just a couple minutes, this will actually show up as an expired coupon. So I'll just wait until that expires and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, technically this actually will not expire because it's set to 2:37 p.m. and my local time is like 8 something. So there's actually a bug with our expiration here. You'll notice my current time 8:42. If I set this for 8:43 and click save, and I make sure that I fill out the rest of this information, you see when I click save, it says it must be after 2:42. And that's because of the way that we're actually doing our minimum date time. So if I go over to that form component real quick, and we scroll all the way down to where we're setting that minimum time for our expires at, which is happening right inside of here, we're doing this split right here and removing this last section. We're essentially removing our time zone data as well. So we need to make sure we compensate for that time zone data. So let me just come up here and say const today is equal to new date. So we can get whatever the current date is. And now I want to convert that new date right here to JSON, but I want to make some modifications to that date first. So the very first thing I want to do up here is I can say today dot, and I want to set the minutes. So we can come in here, say set minutes. I want to get the current minutes. So we can say get minutes, just like that. And what I want to do is I want to subtract my time zone offset. So I can say get time zone offset. This is going to give me my time zone offset in minutes. So essentially I'm compensating for the fact that we're removing the time zone later. So this is going to remove that time zone information for us. So then here, when we actually set this information, it'll take that into account. So now you can see here, if I select 8:45, which is in the future for me, and I click save, you can see that as now working properly. And if I try to add a coupon here that is going to be in the past, let's say we do 8:42, that is in the past, click save, you can see it must be after 8:43. So that actually fixes that particular problem. Now we'll go back over to this coupon page and I'll wait for this to expire and I'll come back to you. This actually hasn't quite finished expiring yet, but one thing we can work on is the fact that we know that on this page, we're going to need to have an active toggle and a delete toggle to be able to remove and deactivate these things. So inside of here, we can actually create functions for those for our actions. So we can say export an async, there we go, function. This one's going to be toggle discount code availability, or we'll say active. There we go. This is going to take in an ID, which is a string, and an is active, which is a Boolean. There we go. And then inside of here, all we need to do is just take our discount code and modify it. So we can say db.discount code. We want to update our discount code where our ID is our ID, and we want to set our data, which is going to be is active, just like that. So we're just updating this. We can make sure we do an await, and that's going to work just fine. Now we can do the exact same thing here for delete. So we can say delete discount code. This is going to take in an ID, which is a string and nothing else. we're going to call the delete function. So just like that, where our ID is that particular ID. That's going to give us a discount code, just like that. Make sure that I have all my parentheses finished off. And if our discount code is equal to null, well, that means that we deleted something that doesn't actually exist. So we can return not found because there was nothing to actually delete. Otherwise, we can just return our discount code, and it really doesn't even matter if we return anything from here. Now you'll also notice immediately in this expired section that coupon code is showing up because it is after 8:45, my current local time. Now you'll notice there is a problem though where this check mark is actually showing as checked because this is active. Technically, all my expired coupons should show up as inactive by default. So on this page here that we're rendering out this different table, I actually want to take in another prop into here, and this is going to be a prop called isInactive. I'm going to have that be a Boolean. There we go. I'm going to make this optional. And I'm also going to have another prop called canDeactivate. There we go. That's also going to be a Boolean. So inside of here, we have isInactive. We're going to default that to false. And canDeactivate, we're going to default that to false as well. Because essentially an expired coupon is going to show as inactive by default, and we cannot deactivate something that is already expired. So here, we're going to scroll all the way down to this section here. So it's either going to be if my discount code is active, and I make sure that my isInactive flag is also not true. So there we go. That's going to fix that problem. So now what I can do is up here, I can say that my expired ones isInactive is going to be true. So now you can see that this is going to show up as an X check mark. No matter what, if it's active or not, it's just always going to show up with an X, which is what we want. I can also do the same thing here. These coupon codes are deactivatable, so we'll say canDeactivate for those ones. Now, if we scroll down all the way to the bottom where we have our drop-down menu sections, obviously this is where we want to determine what we do. So if we can deactivate it, then what I want to do is I want to render out this content. So we'll put this inside of a fragment. I want to render out this, so we'll uncomment that, bring it up into here, and I'm also going to put the separator inside of there as well. So this will say is active, and this will be discount code dot is active, and this will say, sorry, there we go, discount code dot ID. We're going to create this active toggle in just a second, and we can also have our delete one down here as well. Now these two functions essentially are going to be coming directly from our products section. So we have this product actions. I'm just going to copy this entire file, paste it into here, rename this to discount code actions because they're going to do almost the exact same thing. All we need to do is just remove these actions up here. This is going to say this is our active toggle dropdown, and we have our delete dropdown item. So for this, we're going to say delete discount code. There we go. Make sure that I import this properly. And essentially all this is doing is creating a dropdown menu with red text that is disabled, whether this disabled prop is true or if we're in the pending state, and it's just calling that delete function and then refreshing our page. Same thing up here. This is going to say toggle discount code active, and this is active, just like that. And this is going to be taken in it is active prop. That should be all we need to do to clean that up. This should also say is active right there. There we go. So now if we give that a quick save, come over here, we make sure that we import these from the actual section we want. There we go. Same thing here. That's going to be coming from the correct location. This should say discount code. So if we have any orders, obviously we do not want to be able to delete this discount code. That's what that failsafe right here is for. So now let's see if this works. If I click on this, you can see I have the deactivate option. If I click on it, you can see it deactivates this code, and activate reactivates it. If I wanted to, I could delete this as well. So let's come in here and we'll just say that we're going to delete this one. Click delete. You can see it's removed itself. Here, you notice I don't have the deactivate option, but I do have the delete option just because there are no orders associated with this coupon code. But as soon as there are orders associated with it, the delete will no longer be active. Now, the last thing I want to do is on my sales page, this is where I render out all my different orders. I also want to render out the coupon code that they used. So in that order section, we're going to go to this page here. I'm going to make sure that I select the discount code, and I want to select specifically just the code property. So we'll say code is true because that's the only thing I care about selecting from here. And then we can scroll all the way down to this section. I can come and copy this. This is going to be a coupon. There we go. And we can scroll down to where that table cell would be, table cell, just like that. And we can render out that coupon. So if our order.discount code is equal to null, then we want to render out that minus symbol that we've been using, just like that. Otherwise, we're going to render out what that order.discount code actually is. So this will just show us what discount code they used, if any, for each individual order. Now with all that done, we can essentially move over to what the actual user looking side of this is going to be. So when we're clicking on purchasing product 2, for example, we want to be able to make sure we have a section inside of here for entering in discount code information and so on. So I'm just going to close out of all these different pages, and I'm going to open up this customer facing section. I want to go to the particular purchase page. Now, if we look at our code that we have right now, essentially we're using payment intents, and we're creating a payment intent, passing down the client secret to the client. This is essentially straight out of the Stripe documentation. But this actual implementation does not work very well when we want to use discount codes. And that's because if we look at our checkout form, let me just open that up real quick, and we scroll down and we look at what's happening when we actually submit our form, which is inside this handle submit, what's happening is we're using Stripe to confirm our payment, and we already have the amount predetermined. The problem though is, let's say that someone enters the coupon code on this page and it expires in 10 minutes, and then they leave their browser for an hour, come back with the page still open, and they click purchase. Well, right now we have no way to verify that that coupon code is still active when they click the purchase button, because everything happens when the page renders and not when they click purchase. So we need to essentially flip this workflow so that everything is happening after we click the purchase button instead of before we click the purchase button, which is actually really easy to do with Stripe. They have a whole system on how you can do that. So the very first thing I'm going to do before we start implementing any of that is just work on adding an input for our actual discount code. So if we scroll down a little ways, we have our card content, which has all these different elements. We just need to add our own element inside of here. So we'll say a div with a class name of space y2, so we can space things out, and we'll add some margin top on it. Then inside of here, we're going to have a label. So we're going to get our label. Our label is going to be an HTML4 discount code, and it'll just say coupon, just like that. And then we can add in what the input is going to look like for this. The ID is going to be discount code. There we go. We want the text, or the type, sorry, to be text. Name is going to be discount code, just like that. We can just close off this input for now. I also want to add some class names into here. So we can say class name. There we go. And I want to make sure I import this input. There we go. That way we actually get autocomplete on this. So there we go. Our class name for this is going to be max W extra small, because we don't need it to be very large. And we're going to say W full, so it fills that full extra small size. There we go. We can also add in a reference here, so we can reference this. We'll say discount code ref, and we can create that up here. So we can just scroll all the way to the top, and we can say inside of here, const discount code ref equals use ref, and this is an HTML input element. And by default, value is null. So now that at least gets rid of that error down here. If we give that a quick save, we should actually see that show up if we refresh our page. We should see a section for our coupon right here. And as you can see, I'll move my camera out of the way for this section. But as you can see, we have that coupon section right here. Now I also want to add a button for applying this coupon as well. So I'm going to come in here, add a custom button, and this button is just going to say apply, and let's add some classes and such to it. For example, we want the type of this to be button, since we don't want this to actually submit our form. And on click, we essentially want to call an action that is going to do that. But instead of using an action, we're just going to use the URL of our page to add the coupon, which will be really easy, and it's super nice and simple. So inside of this on click function, let me make sure I define this properly. There we go. Give it an arrow function just like that. And inside this on click, all I want to do is I want to get my search params. So it's going to be new URL search params. And that's going to come from the search params that are on our page. We can use a custom hook to get those. So up here, we can say const search params equals use search params. There we go. Make sure I spell const properly. So what this is going to do, if we come down to here, is going to get all of the current parameters already in our URL. That's just going to make sure that we don't accidentally remove a parameter that shouldn't be there. I'm going to also get rid of that. There we go. So this is going to get all of our current existing params. I'm going to add a new param for our coupon. So I'm going to say set a parameter called coupon. And this coupon parameter is just going to be our discount code ref.current. And I want to get the value. Otherwise, I'll set it to an empty string. Then finally, we're going to add a value to our router. So we're going to say router.push, and I want to push essentially my current path name. So what URL are we currently at? That's what this path name is going to be. And then I want to add on to that all of my different parameters. So I can say params.toString, and that's going to convert them to a parameter string. So now what I can do is get my router, is use router, make sure I get the correct one imported, and path name is use path name, just like that. So now if we scroll down, that cleaned up all those different errors. And the really great thing is, if I type in a coupon such as 12 and I click apply, it'll actually add that into my URL. You can see at the top here, coupon equals 12 inside of my URL. Now to make it so my button shows up to the right side of my coupon, what I can do is I can just wrap this inside of a div, not this, sorry, everything down here except for my label inside of a div. So I can wrap my button and my input inside of a div, and we can just give it some class names of flex, gap4, and items center. And now you can see if I give that a quick save and I make sure that my div wraps the correct element. So for example, I believe the div should go here. Now you can see that that apply button is next to my coupon instead. And if I typed in 13, click apply, you can see up here, it's adding the coupon of 13. Now with that information, essentially every single time I render this page, I'm going to have some set of search params. So I can say search params, and I want to get the coupon section from here. And I can add in the type for that, search params. Make sure I spell that properly. That's going to be coupon, which is going to be an optional string because it's not always going to be applied. There we go, just like that. So now down here, I can actually get my discount code, which is just awaiting db.discountcode.findUnique. And I want to find the unique one where my code is my coupon, just like that. And I'm actually going to move this into its own function because it's going to get a little bit more complicated than that. So we're going to say get discount code, just like that. And it's going to take in a coupon, which is a string. I'm going to come up here, just copy that code, paste it into here, and we're going to call get discount code. So if my coupon is equal to null, well, then we want to return undefined. Otherwise, we're going to get our discount code and pass in the coupon for the discount code we want to get. So this is just going to make sure if we don't have a coupon, this will automatically be undefined. Now down here, we're going to try to find a unique one based on that coupon code, but we also need to make sure that it's going to be an active one for our current product as well. So we need to get our product ID, which is going to be a string, just like that. And we need to do a bunch of where checks to make sure all of this works properly. Also, we only need to select certain fields. So I'm going to say that we want to select the ID, we want to select the discount amount, and we want to select the discount type, just like that. Those are the only properties we actually need. Now there's going to be multiple places in our code where we need to check to see if a coupon is unexpired and active, which is a rather long where clause to write out. So I'm actually going to create a helper function for that. So in this lib folder, I'm going to create a brand new file, which is called discount code helper or helpers.ts. There we go. And inside of this function, and if I want to make sure I actually call it a file, not a folder, so let me say that this is going to be deleted. And we're going to create a new file with that name instead. There we go. I'm going to export a function, and this is going to be called usable discount code where. This is going to take in a product ID, which is a string, and essentially it's going to determine whether or not this discount code is available for this particular product. So we want to return an object, and this object is going to satisfy the prisma.discount code where type so that we know it is going to be an allowable where. And then inside of here, we want to first check is active is true, obviously. And then we want to have a big and check, and this and check is going to have a bunch of or checks inside of it. So we can say here, we're going to have our first or check, and this is going to be for checking to see if our product ID is the correct product ID. So this is going to be another array, and we want to check to see if all products is true. Well, then obviously this is going to work. So if all products is true, we're good. Otherwise, we need to check to see if some of our products have this particular ID. So we can say ID is product ID, just like that. So either all of our products is checked or this product ID is in the list of approved products. So first, that check needs to be true. Then we need to do another or check. So here, if our limit is null, well, obviously it's going to work just fine because we have no limit. Otherwise, we need to check to see if our limit has been exceeded. So if our limit is greater than our db.discount.discountcode.fields.uses. There we go. So this is just checking to see if we've exceeded our limit. And we can copy this down one more time for our expires at. So if our expires at is null, or if our expires at is greater than the current date, then we know that this is going to work as well. So now we can just copy this and use this directly inside of here. So we have our where clause. I'm going to take all of those fields that we just created, add them in, and then I'm going to add the coupon section afterwards. So this is just doing a simple where check for all of those fields, and then finally the coupon. Now what I want to do is just take that discount code that we have here, make sure I pass in my product.id. There we go. Take that discount code. I'm going to pass it down into here. So we're going to pass down our discount code to our checkout form. And up inside of here, we're going to have a discount code. It's going to be optional. And it's either going to be, or it's going to have the property, sorry, which is an ID. It's going to have a discount amount, and it's going to have a discount type, and that is that discount code type, just like that. Give that a quick save. You'll notice we do technically have an error here. I'm just going to OR this into undefined. And actually, that's not the error that we're running into. The error that we're running into here, if we go over to here, is that my discount amount should be a number, not a string. Now, if we come over here, we're still getting that error. If I OR this to undefined, that'll actually fix the error. That's just because technically this returns to us null if it can't find anything. So we're just converting that to undefined if we don't have anything. So now using that information of our discount code, we can scroll all the way down and fill in some information on our page. For example, our input can have a default value, just like that, which is our discount code dot, and we just want to get the actual code. So we need to make sure we pass that discount code into here. So we can come up to here, all the way up, discount code, just like that, discount code, and this is going to be an ID, which is a string, discount amount, which is a number, and discount code type, which is going to be a discount code type. And I believe this is just called discount type. There we go. And let's make sure we pass that into here. Discount code, discount code. There we go. And let's make sure we use that inside of here. Now we're just passing down that prop all the way through, which looks like it's working. We have a little bit of an error though, and we just want to make sure that this is an optional field. So here, let's make it optional, and that'll clean up those errors. And then all the way down here, we can make sure that we have this correctly. We want to obviously get the actual code that this should be. So let's come in here, we get code. And actually, we don't even need to get this from the discount code. We can get it directly from our parameters. So what we can do is we can actually say that we want to use search params.get, and we're going to get the search param of coupon. Otherwise, we're going to default this to an empty string. So there we go. We don't even need to get that from our discount code. But down below here, we can actually render out something for our discount code. So if our discount code is not equal to null, then what I want to do is I want to render out some content that shows the percentage off that we're actually going to be getting on this particular product. So to do that, we can create a div. We're going to have some class name of text muted foreground, just like that. Close that off, and inside of here, I'm going to call that format discount code function, pass it in my discount code, and we want to make sure that we render everything properly. So we need to close off our div, just like that. I'm just going to add the text discount onto here. So now if we just actually click the refresh button, we should hopefully see some stuff showing up. We see that our coupon is 13. This is showing up as 13 here, but we're not actually seeing any content showing up to the side here. Let's make sure that we have a coupon called 13. We do not. We only have 15 and 12. So let's call this 12 instead. So I'll say inside of here, 12, click apply. And now you can see it says 12% discount, which is great. Obviously, we need to add different warnings if our discount code is null and so on. So let's work on that as well. So let's scroll all the way up to where we have our error messages. They're being rendered out right here. And essentially, I want to render out a second error message as well. So I'm just going to move this down into here, where we're only going to render our error message if it actually exists. I'm going to put that inside of a div, just like that. There we go. So if our error message exists, we're going to render it. Or if we have a coupon that is not equal to null, but our discount code is equal to null, and let's actually get that coupon. So down here, I actually got it from our search params. I'm just going to take that coupon. There we go. Come all the way up here. Const coupon is equal to that code. So now at least we have access to that coupon. So if our coupon is not equal to null and our discount code is equal to null, then we have a problem because we entered a coupon code that is invalid. So here, I'm just going to have a div that says invalid discount code. There we go. Give that a quick save. And now if I enter something like this, that's not real, click apply, you can see it says invalid discount code. But if I enter something valid and click apply, you can see it is now showing me the valid code. Now, kind of the final thing we have left before we start implementing the payment portion of this is getting this number and this number down here to show the correct amount. So let's scroll all the way up to the very top of our page here, where we have all of our information for our product, discount code, and so on. And what I want to do is get information for the amount that this is going to cost us. And I also want to get information for if this is discounted or not. So this will just be if our amount is not equal to our product.price in cents. And to get our amount, all we need to do is if our discount code is equal to null, well then obviously we're just going to render out our product.price in cents. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to get our discounted amount, which is a helper function we're going to create, which takes our discount code and it takes in our product.price in cents. So this function, I'm just going to put directly in this helper here. So I'm going to come down to the bottom, export function. There we go. This is going to take in a discount code, which is going to have a discount amount, which is a number. And it's also going to have a discount type, which is that discount code type. And then finally, it's going to have a price in cents, which is going to be a number. There we go. So now we have this information for us. I can just use a simple switch again on that discount code.type. There we go. We want to have our different cases. So let's get both those cases. And we also want to make sure we have that default in there as well. So this default is going to throw a new error. And this error is going to be the exact same thing. Invalid discount type. It's going to be our discount code dot discount type. And I want to make sure that it satisfies never, just like that. So we make sure we're checking all of our different types. Right now, this is not going to work because we haven't filled in this information. But let's go ahead and add in some stuff inside of here for what we want to return from both of these. And as you can see, that fixes that satisfies. So here, what I want to do is I want to take the math.ceiling function because I want to always round essentially to the wholest penny. Obviously, we can't have partial pennies. And what I want to do is I want to take my price in cents. I want to subtract from this my price in cents times my discount code dot discount amount. And I want to divide that by 100. So essentially all I'm doing is I'm converting this percentage value into here into like a percentage off, and I'm subtracting that from my price in cents. So this is just going to give me my price in cents. And I obviously don't want to make this exceed essentially 0. So I'm going to come in here with a math.max. And you would think that putting in 0 inside of here is great. So essentially it's going to be free or whatever my discount price is. But when you're using Stripe or any other payment processor, you can't purchase something for $0. So we're going to have the minimum price that something can be 1 penny. So that's the cheapest anything that we purchase can be. Now I'm going to do the same thing down here for the fixed value. Copy that down. Again, the cheapest anything can be is 1 penny. And all we want to do for this one, it's much simpler. We're just going to take this and subtract our discount code dot amount from it. So now with that out of the way, we can make sure that we import this function just like that. This should say discount code just like that. It looks like everything is working properly. And now we can actually use that amount down below. So here, where we're listing out our product price in cents, we can just put that as the amount right here. So now that's going to be our discounted amount, which is great. And then we need to have a section that shows the old amount if, for example, it is discounted. So what I want to do is add a brand new div. So we're going to have a div inside of here. And this is going to have a class name, and this class name is going to depend on if we're discounted or not. So if we are discounted, I want this to have a line through it because it's obviously not our current price. We're going to have a text muted of foreground. Make sure I spell that properly. There we go. And we're also going to have the text be small. Otherwise, we're not going to have any class names at all if this is. There we go. So now what we can do inside of here is format the currency, and this is going to be our original product price. So product, product dot price in cents. There we go. Divided by 100. So that's going to be our original price if we're currently discounted. And this is going to show the discounted price only if we are discounted. So if we are discounted, then render out this price right here. So if we give that a save, you can see it's crossed out this version and showing our version down here. Now I'm going to format this a little bit better by adding this inside of a div. We're going to give this a text of large. We're going to say it's going to be flex gap of 4 and items baseline. There we go. Close that off. Bring that down below all these different sections. And here we can remove that text large. We can actually move this up one. There we go. Give that a quick save. We want to make sure that this div wraps everything. There we go. So now you can see that they're side by side, which is exactly what we want. And if we have no discount, for example, we apply no discount at all, you can see it just lists out the original price. While if we have a discount and click apply, you can see now it's actually showing that discount. Now we do have an error with our product discounts for normal amounts. So we want to make sure that we deal with this type of scenario. So we're going to multiply this number by 100 to convert it from dollars or from dollars to pennies. So there we go. Now it's properly $15 off. And if we do our 13%, I'm sorry, it's actually 12%, click apply, you can see that now this is 12% off. Now the next big step is going to be converting our payment workflow from working on the client to working more on the server. So right now here, instead of using a client secret, we're going to completely remove that. And instead we're going to pass in our amount. We're going to pass in the mode, which is going to be payment, saying that we want to collect a payment. And we're also going to specify the currency, which is going to be US dollars. So just by doing that, we've cleaned up quite a bit of our code related to the payment processing. So we no longer are doing this on the client as much. Also, to make sure our price shows up correctly down here, I'm going to change this to whatever our discounted amount is. So now you can see that this is correctly matching the price up here as well. So the first thing I want to do is go back to this page section. And you notice here is where we're creating our payment intent. This is no longer something I want to do on this page. Instead, I want to do this in a separate action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new action that's going to create this payment intent for me. So we'll go into the actions here. We have orders. I'll just minimize all this down. We're going to export an async function called create payment intent. and it's essentially going to do this code somewhere inside of here. I'm not going to worry about cleaning this up yet. We'll worry about that in a little bit. But now we can come back to here, give this a save, remove the client secret, and in our checkout form, make sure that we no longer use the client secret in any of our props. And you can see it's all still working just fine. I'll even minimize this a little more so we have more room to look at our code. And everything in this checkout form is pretty much fine. The next thing we need to work on is how we actually handle our submitting. Because right now we're confirming a payment, which is great, but we first need to create that payment intent instead because we don't create it beforehand. So we need to recreate that payment intent beforehand or before we actually do this. So this is going to take a couple steps. The first thing we need to do is we need to submit this form over here to Stripe to verify all of our information is right. So we can say form submit is equal to await calling elements.submit, just like that. And if our form submit dot error, if we have an error, so that's not equal to null, just like that, then what we want to do is set our error message to our form submit dot error. And we also want to set is loading to false, and we can return just like that. And here we want to get specifically the message property. So this is just making sure that our form submits properly. We need to now add this because essentially how we're doing our payment collecting is slightly different. So this is making sure our form submits properly. And the next step is to get that payment intent. So we can say await create payment intent, which is that action we just created. And we need to pass in all the information that we're getting. So we need to get our email passed into here. We need to get our product ID for the product, as well as our discount code .id if we have a discount code that's being applied. So this will create us a brand new payment intent for this particular user, for this particular product, using this particular discount code, so we can verify that the discount code works before we submit this to Stripe. Now, all of this information for checking to make sure the user exists, I'm going to move that into this create payment intent function. So we're going to do that somewhere inside of here as well. So everything is going to be done on the server instead of doing anything at all on the client. Now, inside this payment intent, I'm also going to make sure I check for any errors that occur. So if my payment intent dot error is not equal to null, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I take my payment intent dot error, set that as my error message, set is loading as false, and then return. And then what we can do down here is we can actually get the client secret directly from that payment intent dot client secret. That's going to be what we return down to the user. Otherwise, all of the rest of this stuff can stay exactly the same. We're still confirming the payment. We're just making sure we create the payment on the server directly before we submit it to make sure that the coupon code is still valid. So now to clean up all these different errors, let's go and implement this actual function. We know that we have the email coming in as a string. We have the product ID coming in as a string, and we have the discount code ID, which is an optional string coming into this actual function. Now we need to get our product and to get our discount code. So we can say const product is equal to await db.product.findUnique, where our ID is our product ID. So at least we are getting our product here. And if our product is null, obviously we have an error. So if our product is equal to null, we'll return an error that just says unexpected error, just so the user knows that something did not go as we planned it to. Now our discount code, we want to get that from our discount code ID. So if our discount code ID is equal to null, well, then this will be null or undefined. It really doesn't matter. Otherwise, what we can do is we can actually get our discount code. So we can say db.discountCode. We want to find essentially the first one that meets our criteria, and we can actually use find unique for this. So for this one, we need to get it where the ID is our discount code ID, just like that. And we also need to come in here with all of our additional clauses for making sure it is a usable discount code where clause. So let's just import that real quick, give that a quick save. I need to make sure I fix my ternary operator here. There we go. Now that can actually give us our auto formatting. So we're getting our discount code. We need to make sure for this, we pass in our product.id because obviously we want to only get the usable one for this particular product. And I want to make sure that we await this for our actual discount code. So it's either going to be all of our discount code or it's going to be null. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to check to see if our discount code is equal to null and the actual discount code ID is also equal to null. I'm sorry, not equal to null. This means that we passed up a discount code, but that discount code was either expired or did not exist in our database. So if that's the case, we want to return an error that tells the user that the coupon has expired. And this is going to solve the problem where, let's say our coupon expires in 10 minutes and they have their checkout page open for an hour, it'll expire while the checkout page is open. So it looks like it's an active coupon, but as soon as they click the purchase button, it'll run this page here and it'll say, hey, you know what? That coupon expired while the page was open. and it'll let them know that that coupon has actually expired. Now, the next thing we can work on is this user order exist. This is actually a function we no longer really need. So we can just take all the code from this function and essentially completely remove it. So inside of here, all of this function is all we need to do is just take the return from this function. And this is the only place we're ever using this. So we can essentially completely remove this. And this is just in our order actions. So where this entire file is, we can just completely remove that since we no longer need it. And we can come into here and we can just replace the code we had here with that single statement. So essentially, we're just removing that return section. And all we're doing here is we're seeing the order is the first order, getting it for all this particular information. We don't even need to do any of this null checking. So we can just remove all this null related checking here. Make sure I have all my parentheses correct. And this will say existing order. So if the user has already purchased something, this will show up. And if we have an existing order, so if existing order is not equal to null, well, then we need to return down an error to the user. So we'll say error, and this error is essentially just going to be this text right here. There we go. Now that we've checked to make sure everything works, we have our product, we have our discount code if it's available, we have the existing order to make sure that the user hasn't already purchased this. The next step is to determine what the amount should be. So we need to get our amount. And this is pretty simple. We've pretty much done this code before. So if our discount code is equal to null, well, then we're just going to use our product.price in cents. Otherwise, if our discount code is not null, we're going to get the discounted amount from our discount code and our product.price in cents. There we go. So that's going to get us the amount that we can use, which we can pass directly into our Stripe function. Now, in order to use Stripe, we need to come all the way up to the top here. We can say const Stripe is equal to new Stripe. That's coming from our Stripe library. So let me make sure I import that. We need to get our environment variable, which is Stripe secret key as a string, just like that. Spell const properly. And now we have access to Stripe, so we can actually create that payment intent. And for our metadata, we also want to pass in our discount code ID, just like that. And this discount code ID is going to be our discount code.id, or it's going to be null if we have no discount code to apply to this. Finally, we can check to make sure our client secret was created. And if not, we can return an error down to the user that says unknown error. And then finally, at the very end, we can return our actual client secret, which is payment intent.client secret, because now we know that this is actually a valid value. So all we've done is just moved everything related to creating our payment intent to the last possible second when they click the purchase button. So we can go back into our checkout form here. We can make sure we clean up any different errors we have. For example, this import no longer actually exists and we don't need this anymore. Give that a quick save. You can see our page is still rendering, which is really great. And the best part is we're creating this payment intent, like I said, as late as possible. So let's see if this actually works. Let's try to create a purchase for this coupon code that we have. So we'll just enter a bunch of information. I'm going to refresh my page actually, just to make sure there's no errors. So we're going to enter in our fake card information, just like this. Get a random email address. It really doesn't matter. And we're going to click purchase. And you can see it's saying purchasing, 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 and it's redirecting us to this success page. Now, currently on the success page, we're showing the price of the product. We don't actually need to show that information. We could show the actual price they paid, but it's really not super important. So I'm going to go to that page and just remove that section completely. So we no longer are actually showing the price of the product because really we don't actually need that information. They still have the download button, which is great. But the last step is to actually make sure we hook up this payment information properly. So we have this webhook right here, which is called whenever we make a purchase. And this purchase information is what we're getting from. So we have our product ID. We also want to get our discount code ID, which is just our charge.metadata.discount code ID. That way we can hook up our discount code with our order as well. Because as you can see, we have quite a few errors inside of here. Now, I think part of the reason for this problem is actually a problem with our database that we set up at the very beginning. For our order, we need to make sure that this discount code is actually an optional string. This should not be required. And we also need to make sure that this discount code is optional as well. So let's just make sure that we add these changes. We'll say npx prisma migrate dev, just like that. That should migrate our database with all these different changes. Looks like everything's working fine. We'll just say fix error as the name of our migration. Doesn't really matter. Looks like that worked. So now we can actually run this back in development, and you can see that hopefully those errors go away. But we still want to add the discount code if we have one. So we can just come in here and we can say that the discount code ID is going to be added in there as well if we have one. Also, what I want to do is if we have a discount code, I want to make sure that we increment the uses. So if our discount code ID is not equal to null, there we go. What I want to do is I want to say db.discountCode. I want to update, and I want to update where my ID is my discount code ID. There we go. Make sure I await that. And I specifically want to modify the data for my uses. So we'll say data uses. And what I want to do is I want to increment this by 1. So this is just going to add 1 to my uses right here anytime that I use a discount code. So now let's actually test that all of this works together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new tab here to actually forward all of my Stripe webhooks to my local page. This is just a Stripe listen forward to my local URL for my Stripe webhook. This was covered in the previous video, not super important. It's just really for testing purposes. So now whenever I make a purchase, it should go through this exact post right here. So let's go over to our products. I want to purchase product number 1, and we're going to purchase it using a particular discount code. So let's come in here with all of our fake information, just like this. Let's to an email. Make sure that my card is filled out, and we're going to use the discount code of 15. We'll click apply, so it's $15 cheaper, and we're going to click purchase. And we should see that everything is going to work properly, and it's going to actually call all of our different code off to the side. So what we can do now is go ahead and check our admin page. So we'll say admin, make sure I delete all this extra stuff. Now we're on our admin page. You can see that we have 1 customer. You can see that we have 2 orders and so on. If we go over to our customer section, we have this customer. If we look at the sales, we can see that we have 2 different orders being created. So it looks like we have a little bit of a bug with that related code here. And you can see over here, we have our coupons, and you can see right here our remaining uses for this particular coupon and so on. Now, the reason that we have 2 sales showing up is because actually I have this open up in one tab, and then I have a different window opened up on the other side that is also running that exact same command. So essentially it was forwarding us twice, so 2 more times than it should have. It's more of a testing error than anything. I'm just going to delete one of these for now, go over to our coupons, and let's use this 12 coupon. Right now it has 2 remaining uses, so if we use it once, we should go down to 1 remaining use. So let's go ahead and actually test that. We'll go over to localhost. I'll create a product 2 that I'm going to be purchasing. I'm going to use that coupon code, which I believe was 12 for 12% off. Enter in all of our information. Let's make sure we get all of that. Random, email, doesn't really matter. Click the purchase button. You can see it's purchasing. And if we come over to here, we should see that this remaining uses goes down to 1. As you can see, 1 remaining use, 1 total order. Let's do another purchase for a product to essentially remove all the remaining uses of that. So we'll do all those 4 2s again. Doesn't matter what this email address is. There we go. And for our coupon, we're using that 12 coupon, and we're going to purchase this one. So now, once that purchase goes through and we check over here, this remaining usage should be 0, and it should be popped down into expired. As you can see, remaining use is 0, 2 total orders, and it is expired. If we look at our sales, you can see exactly what coupon we used with each product that we purchased. And if we purchase a product with no coupon, we should see that this still works as well. So let's enter in all of that information again. We're going to make sure that we have a random email address. And for a coupon, we're not going to enter one. We'll click apply, and we should see that now it's going to actually create a brand new sale with no coupon applied. And that's all it takes to create an advanced custom coupon system. Now, if you want to check out the original e-commerce project that this is based on, I'll link that video right over here. It's the longest video I've ever created. It's super in-depth and covers everything you need to know about setting up your own e-commerce site completely from scratch in Next.js. Now, with that said, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.